introduce this session, which is very lovely. And it's always a pleasure to introduce Celine, who may be a new face to some of you, who may be fairly new to our world of GTR, but for those of you that were around last year as well, then you would have had a fantastic stimulating session from Celine last year, which I think invigorated everyone, but at the same time somehow gave us this real sense of calmness. I'm not quite sure how you managed to do both, but you certainly do. So there's different levels of energies that you give us, which is absolutely delightful. And so Celine is really well known in her field and arena, and gives so much support to people individually, some fantastic webinars, some amazing online help as well, very individual, from nutrition to well-being, all the whole gamut. It's amazing. And so we're very lucky to have Celine with us today. I think Celine today will give you a moment of calm and pause, and re-energize you, and really give you the inspiration also to be your own Chief Energy Officer, which I think is a fabulous title. So I think you're going to get some inspirational help. You'll certainly get some practical help, and really think about well-being and stress management, which we know moving into this year, now we're in February, is something that will be of real value to us. So thank you, Celine. Really looking forward to the session, and I hope everyone really enjoys it.
Thank you so much, Ash. Thank you. And thank you, Phoebe, for the background support. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. If anybody was at my session before, like I know Ash was, won't you pop a yes into the chat? And I'm hoping that if you were, that not only is your Wellculator score higher than it was then, but that you're able to build on that knowledge. And if this is the first time that we're meeting, I really am delighted to be meeting you. I can't think of a better, more relevant topic to be speaking about. What I do know is that there's a lot of things that are probably distracting you right now. I mean, we're from all different parts of the globe, all different parts of times of day, and it's very difficult when we have lots of stress and lots of demands to put ourselves first. But the fact that you've signed onto this call, and I know that Zoom is probably a different platform to what you're used to, and for those of you that will be watching this recording, gift yourself the presence of being here, perhaps really turning your phone over, if you're able to, be brave enough to actually close Slack or close Teams so that you're not distracted. I am planning quite a whirlwind well-being tour. I want to cover so much ground that everyone here has at least one thing that you can take back and put into practice, no matter what your lifestyle is, and so that you can feel more empowered and, like Ash said, more as if you are your own CEO, Chief Energy Officer, or actually, I'm calling that Chief Effervescent Officer, because what we need more of is not just more energy, but more true effervescence, right? Which is, well, it's conviviality at its very core. So welcome, everybody. The title for today is Performance Chemistry. Now, we all need high energy to be able to perform well. And when we have lots of energy, it can feel like we can move mountains. However, when we have low energy, it can feel potentially that everything is a huge mountain, right? And so today I'm going to share with you some of the chemistry, the physiology that can help you understand how to potentially better support your performance and energy and well-being in a very holistic way. But for me, it's not just about the theory. What's more important than theory is being able to put things into practice. And so we're going to do quite a few practical exercises. I always say that everything is an invitation. I'm going to invite you to perhaps try new things or join me in exercises. And it's an invitation. And I hope that you'll throw yourself in, stay curious and playful. I know that that is one of your values. And gift yourself with, like I said, presence. Presence to be present. And on that note, is there something that's really on your mind? You might have a few things on your mind that if you simply wrote it down maybe on a little note right now, or you just took a moment to mentally set it aside, that would help you to be more fully present. It might even involve your body, like stretching or taking a deep breath in, maybe having a sip of water, and setting the intention to be here, knowing that we will finish on time, and before you know it, you'll be back into that whirlwind of your day. Some of you, your days are starting, some of us towards the end of the day, especially if you're checking in from Dubai. And really what I'd like you to do is at the end of the session, when I wrap it up, we're going to do a personal pledge, an exercise that is based on behavioral science, and I want you to leave with one thing One thing that you're going to commit to doing. Not 10 things, that's too much. I want you to set yourself up for success. If all this was easy, this well-being stuff, we would all be healthier and happier. It isn't that easy, especially not in the context that we find ourselves today. So we need to be smart about how we create behavior change. And the good news is, for those of you that want the accountability and support, and I hope you'll join me, we're having a check-in session in about 2 weeks' time to see how you're doing with your personal pledge, to celebrate, hopefully, or to talk about challenges. So you'll get those details. If I recall, it's at the same time on the 22nd or the 24th, but you'll get those details from Phoebe. Thank you for sending those out. And so today is a bit like driving. I don't know if anybody's been driving recently. I did some long distance trips. I've been to clients 3 times this year so far, in person in the room, which was quite different actually. And because all 3 of the trips were over 3 hours each way, I was very conscious of how it's my choice on how relaxed I stay, no matter what's happening around me. So there were diversions, there were some traffic jams, there's always, the unexpected driver that maybe does something strange on the road. And I could choose to grip the steering wheel, clench my jaw, frown because now I'm taking extra time or running late, or to consciously tap into my breath, to stay grounded, to keep my body relaxed. So create calm inside my body despite the chaos around me. And that's what today's about. And it's delightful that Ash actually mentioned that as something that you recall, is the sense of calm, because there's so much chaos going around us, and this is no destination. We're not going to get somewhere. It's a journey that we do for a very long time until we take our last breath. And through this journey, we're going to go through many seasons. Right now, if most of us are in the Northern Hemisphere, we're experiencing the heart of winter. On a metaphorical note, many of us over the past 18 months to 2 years have had a very dark winter with challenging times. And never ever in our generation have we been through this amount of uncertainty and upheaval. So I want to start with that because prolonged uncertainty triggers the stress response. And a little bit of stress is good. It gets you to be on time for a call like this, for instance, or gets you out of bed in the morning. Too much stress for too long keeps you in overdrive and can really be exhausting. And we need to look at what's happened, what is still happening, through a lens not just of stress, but also through emotions. Because many of us are not just feeling stress. We're feeling loneliness, despair, sadness, isolation, maybe apathy or numbness. It's hard to move on when we don't actually know what we're moving into. And so I want to start with, it's okay for you not to be feeling okay. There definitely is a collective trauma and grief. And when I say grief, some of us have experienced phenomenal loss, but there's also this, what psychologists are calling ambiguous loss because of COVID and the pandemic, is the sense of, we've lost out on birthdays and milestones and celebrations, opportunities for conviviality. And it's easy to just rush ahead. It's the 1st of February and we're already at quite a pace for 2022. But if we forge ahead too quickly, we just forget and we don't make time to honor the past or to truly process this long-term stress. And long-term stress, like I mentioned, whether you are in the wild being chased by an animal, I have been chased by animals because I grew up in South Africa. I was never chased by a wild cat, but my parents, who loved going to safari reserves, we would often get very close to the elephants, too close in fact, and you'd have, an elephant coming at you quite fast is something that definitely triggers the stress response. The brain kicks in, the adrenal glands flush out this huge amount of adrenaline and cortisol, which gets you ready to be able to run away from the elephant or the wild cat, or to decide to confront it, or to have the wits to potentially hide. Now, we're not potentially chased by animals, but we are chased by teams not working, broadband going down, an argument with a loved one, another piece of news on social media, even a perceived thought, when you're lying awake at night and you can't get back to sleep, that can even create the same stress response. We get the same flooding of hormones, of adrenaline, of cortisol, which gets your heart rate beating really fast, prepares your muscles, shuts down digestion, because it's not important to digest your breakfast if you potentially are going to be killed. And so it's not just technology, but it's everything that's happened and all this uncertainty that really is taxing. And this little piece of biology is important. This may be familiar to some of you. This may be completely new information. In a very simple way, when we are under a lot of stress, we go into what we call the accelerator part of the nervous system. This is called the sympathetic nervous system. That's what gets your blood flow going, your muscles prepared, your blood pressure up, your brain focuses on, so you become quite single focused. You lose big picture thinking. Your immunity kind of takes a back step because you need to be ready for immediate survival, not long-term resistance to illness. And many of us are in this state 80% of the time. Perhaps even during sleep, we're not even fully resting. What we rather want is this other end of the nervous system where we allow for more relaxation and rest. And this takes active commitment. And so, on that note, enough about some theory and biology. Let's do a practical exercise that right now can help you shift a little bit away from the accelerator, more towards some relaxation. Because when you're in that, what we call parasympathetic state, I always remember it as paradise, parasympathetic. Paradise generally makes me think of relaxing, no demands, no stress. And so let's go into a little bit of paradise. What we're going to do is I invite you, I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. This is called the mindful minute exercise. It's very powerful. And I'm just going to pop open the chat. I'm going to set my timer. I'll tell you when I start. And what I invite you to do is bring your awareness to your breath. So if you are distracted and doing something else, if you can spare yourself 60 seconds, this is the one tool, if you put into practice, can help you find strategic recovery during your day, which can help you relax more at night so you can actually get the deep rest that you need. Can also help prevent that hijack that happens in our brain when the lizard part hijacks the wizard part when we're in the stress response. And that's a primal biological response that most of us are just pulled into all the time. We need to actively work at reducing it. So I'd like you to bring your awareness to your breath, and without changing it, I'd like you to count how many breath cycles you take over the minute. An inhale and an exhale is 1 breath cycle. So bring your awareness to your breath, and starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Count how many breath cycles you take. It may be helpful just to soften your gaze so you're not distracted by the screen. I'll let you know when a minute is up. Notice how many breath cycles you take. And if your mind has wandered, that's okay, without judgment or criticism. Gently bring it back to my voice or back to your breath. It's normal when our minds are busy for them to take a while to slow down. And there we go. That is 1 minute. If you're happy to share in the chat, I'm curious to know how many breath cycles you took in that minute. Let's see. So we're starting off at 15. We've got 11, 13, another 11. I saw a 7 and a 9. I was wondering if there were any single digits because, right, what a range from 6 up to 17. Okay. What we know, what the research is showing, is when we breathe slowly and deeply, we create that calm despite the chaos. So the breath is one of the fastest ways to A, get an insight into whether you're in more of the sympathetic, the accelerated state, or the relaxation state, the parasympathetic. And the second thing it does, when you control your breath, despite what's happening around you, you can avoid that fight or flight response from being triggered. And when you do that, you keep full cognitive function. You keep your immunity, your digestion happens, and you have much more ease and energy at the end of a day. Is this easy? No. That's why it's important to create space in your diary and your schedule. Where could you maybe do a mindful minute? Starting with once a day, maybe at midday. Maybe you could do it when you boil the kettle if you're working at home. Maybe you could put a post-it note in the bathroom on the mirror so whenever you go there, there's a reminder of checking in with your breath. And if you can, to aim for 6 to 8 breath cycles in a minute. That is what an organization called HeartMath and many others are saying is really helpful for keeping a calm nervous system. And the breath is intricately connected to so much, to all aspects of our well-being, which is our physical body, our heart, our mind, and our sense of connection. Now, these 4 different aspects of well-being are what make us up, right? And they're all important. I'm not at all trying to break you up into 4 parts, but what I find helpful about thinking about my well-being in terms of these 4 areas, and perhaps you can do the same, is it helps me understand where I can focus. So your body is your physical well-being. Your heart is your emotional well-being that relates to emotional intelligence, your ability to regulate stress, to stay calm despite the chaos. And you've got one tool already that you can use for that, the breath, especially the mindful minute, because without even changing your breath, you probably now are breathing slightly more slower and deeper than before I asked you to pay attention to it. And then your mind, which is your intellectual well-being, your ability to focus on this presentation, to get through your work with a sense of productivity and effectiveness. And then there's this spirit or a sense of meaning, which is about our contribution, our belonging, whether we have a sense of purpose and maybe that we're giving back. All of these are important. However, for today, we're going to focus primarily on the physical dimension of well-being. So what are the things that you can do to make sure that you have those in place to help support your emotional and mental well-being? Because if you're dehydrated, sleep deprived, and your blood glucose is all over the show, you are not going to show up at your best, mentally or emotionally. Fact. Let alone have enough energy for meaning and contribution and giving back. And this performance pyramid that was first designed by Dr. Tony Schwartz also makes me think of, I grew up with this, and I thought I'd share this because of, the industry that you're in and the shared passion that we have for champagne. I sound South African, but all my family, my mom and my dad and my great-great-great-grandmother, who I recently found out lived to the age of 107, didn't know that, they're all from the Champagne region in France. So for me, champagne is part of my life. And even if you choose not to drink, I always say to people, what sparkling drinks symbolize is effervescence. And there's not one big bubble that makes a drink effervescent. What makes effervescence is all the small little bubbles that rise. So it's the small things that you're going to choose to do or to keep in place or to build on, or the one small thing you're going to take from today that builds on each other. Consistency over intensity. And when you have lots of effervescence, you're able to not only feel effervescent yourself, but maybe you can overflow and help fill others. Because my parents used to stack glasses just like that all the time. I've got pictures in my childhood album of, that they would pour the top glass, it would overflow. The glasses were always on a silver tray. So if there was any spillage, my mom would drink from the tray. I remember that as a kid. Anyway, let's see. What are the foundational things that you need to make sure that your body, your physical well-being is at its best? So within the next hour, because we will definitely finish on time, you are going to have a score. And if any of you have been through the Wellculator before, I'm curious to know if your score has gone up. So the Wellculator is a journey through 10 foundational aspects of well-being that help support us physically and are the starting blocks for managing our emotional and mental well-being. The first 4 have got to do with how you choose to strategically refuel or to hydrate. So have you got some kind of strategy, a plan that you put into place, whether you're working from home or hybrid or whatever your lifestyle is? You've got a plan that you put into place most of the time that helps you. I generally come across this. I mean, we're waking up and there's morning mayhem. Maybe there's kids involved or a commute or not, or maybe you're super tired because you've been awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. so you're hitting the snooze button. We then grab whatever we can get our hands on, which may not always be the best way to start our day. We then have back-to-back cups of coffee, perhaps. And then when we have lunch, we don't really stop and have lunch. We're still distracted by phones. In the afternoon, we look for something to lift our energy. It might be something sweet or salty or another coffee. And by the time we get home and relax, we end up eating more than we need and possibly having a bit too much alcohol or, some wine or some chocolate that bookends that. So I don't know, can anybody resonate with any aspects of that? And when you look at that slide, what color do you primarily see? You might notice that there's a lot of beige, which is an important component. So if you want to own the title Chief Energy Officer, it's really important that we look at how you refuel, because food is your base energy source. And you don't want your blood glucose or your blood sugar, which is what we get from the food that we eat, to go all over the show, highs and lows. Because without proper, what I call glycemic control, it's hard to get the most out of your mind, and also to help your body stay calm, let alone enhance your gut health. So this is what ideal could look like. There is no ideal for each individual. We're all unique. I'm a dietitian by qualification. So when I work one-on-one with patients and clients, it's always interesting how it's so important to find the right blueprint for you. What I'm about to share with you seems to work for most of us, but I'm not suggesting that it's 100% the solution for you. The key is to find a blueprint, a strategy that best suits your genetic blueprint, and I'll tell you how you can check for that, and your lifestyle, and that you're able to keep in place 80% of the time. So when you are eating breakfast, snacks, lunch, is to incorporate color, bring it not from wine gums and Skittles and M&Ms, but from vegetables, salads, fruits, so nature's color palette. When you stop for lunch, to definitely act like you're French or Spanish and actually give yourself a break. Even if you start with 15 minutes, because that's how long it takes your stomach to stretch and send messages up to your brain to say that you've had enough to eat. And try not to be on your phone. If you are working, which I know many of us are, 8 hours a day, maybe even 10 hours, or 12 or more, you absolutely have to have a pit stop in the middle of your day. And if that pit stop cannot be 15 or 20 minutes, then we need to take a look at how you can prioritize and find time in your diary, because it's like driving for 10 hours and not taking your car to get some gas or fuel. At some point, you're going to burn out, literally. And burnout and mental health and everything that comes with it, I can't believe how much I'm dealing with that at the moment. In the afternoon, if you're feeling tired, before you grab or have like what I call a snackcident, is to ask yourself, am I hydrated? Have I had enough water? Water is one of the basic things that we need to keep our energy up, because when we don't have enough water or herbal tea, if we drink too much caffeine, or we just don't drink beverages at all, we get dehydrated, so we can get tired, headache, hungry. That doesn't serve anyone when you've still got like quite a productive afternoon to get through. Another thing to ask yourself is, have you been breathing? And breathing is easier when we get fresh air. So hopefully, no matter what your circumstance, even if it means, I don't know, sitting by a window for 10 minutes if the weather's really bad outside or you can't get out, it might be super warm, say Dubai, or super cold and rainy in the UK. But we need oxygen. And that's why I started with the breath-based exercise. We also need nature. Nature is a food group. The amount of stress we're under, the more you can tap into nature's wisdom and soothing ability, the better. And I'm going to use an analogy of nature and the seasons to help you think about how you approach rest throughout your day, not just at night. If you do this, if you eat a bit of color, incorporate some hydration, think about how you're breathing and moving, it makes it so much easier to make better choices at night. It really does. But what's key is to set yourself up for success, right? Is to think about maybe once a month or once a week, shopping online, putting the right kind of snacks in your environment, whether that be at home or if you are driving or commuting or at the office, to make it easier. And not just eating, but when we want to do movement, what I find is we shouldn't do this alone, is be accountable. Find a buddy that you can say, you know what, let's have lunch together. Because it's easy to let yourself down, but it's not easy to let your colleague down when you've said, we're going to spend 15 minutes together over lunch. Or simply just knowing that you've said that you're going to do that and check in with them. Those kind of engagements, we need to think out the box now for those kind of engagements. They can become very cohesive and bonding, especially when we're not together all the time. So one of the keys that I mentioned was to eat like an artist and to have a lot of color on your plates. And why color is so important is because these foods, specifically fresh produce, are really the language of food that speaks to our genes and helps us be at our best. So they give us vitamins and minerals, and the more variety you have, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, the whole rainbow, the better. And ideally we should have, if you think of it, this is a stress ball or a tennis ball or a small fistful, you want to be having 8 portions on most days of the week. A minimum of 5, but if you really want to enhance and optimize your well-being, you want to be aiming for a lot more plant-based foods. Another reason why these foods are so important is because of how they impact our gut. And your gut is your frontline immunity. So when we're talking about the context of a pandemic, it is so important to think about how can you enhance your resilience from the inside out. And your gut microbiome, that universe of bacteria, is what helps you defend yourself and keep your immunity strong. One personal story to drive home this point, and if you want to explore this topic more, I'd recommend that, or you can either reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. There's many podcasts and books that are outstanding, but it's important to look after your gut health. My mom, when she first went to South Africa with my father, they went on honeymoon, by the way. They met in 1963, got married in 1968, saved money and went on this trip in 1969. It was meant to be a trip. But they ended up staying. They're still in Johannesburg. They're actually moving back to France before the spring. It's in the next 2 or 3 months. Hopefully, because that was the plan 2 years ago. And many plans were thwarted, you know. My mom, though, after she realized she was staying in South Africa, it was very stressful. She couldn't speak English. And she came from a family of 7. So for her, it was difficult. My dad found it much easier. He was an only child. And so what happened was, because of the stress, her tummy got affected. She got quite severe constipation and her skin got triggered. And she had this very severe psoriasis that throughout her life, whenever she was stressed, it would flare up. And about 7 years ago, she had a very stressful event and her tummy really wasn't happy and healthy and her skin wasn't healthy. Even for the first time, it came up her neck and she had bleeding and her scalp was itchy. Her whole body hurt. She would sit with wet towels under a fan. And the doctors couldn't give her more of the medication because it was really bad for her liver. So she decided to see somebody who asked her more about her lifestyle, not just about her skin. And they picked up in the consultation about her slight anxiety and her constipation. And so the focus became mindfulness and her gut. So she had 8 portions, fistfuls, of colorful foods on most days. She did not give up wine. This is a French woman. Apéritif, c'est très important. So, she didn't give up everything. What happened? Within 4 months, her skin cleared. Constipation went away. She has never, to this day, taken the medication again, the corticosteroid that she used to have. So I share this story because no matter, first of all, what your age, my mom is now, and actually this photo is from lockdown last year on her birthday, which was 5, almost 6 years on. You can see her skin is still clear. And what is she having for breakfast on her birthday? Can you see on the plate? Yes, it's not a very colorful food, is it? But that's important because it shows you balance. So anybody really, but my mother and myself, I find that when I do the right things 80% of the time, 20% of the time, if I'm having a croissant or cheesecake or champagne or whatever it is that your heart desires, it's okay. Balance is incredibly important. So are you eating like an artist? Are you making sure that your meals are really colorful? There's so many things you can do. And if you want more information around this, I've got lots of blogs and ideas and recipes. In fact, I've got a weekly recipe that I send out that you can find that all on my website. We've covered a bit of ground. We've been through strategic refueling, eating like an artist, being mindful around your meals, especially your midday or lunch strategic stop, thinking about how you hydrate. Now, how do you know if all of this is working? How do you know that the way that you eat, the supplements that you take, if you choose to take supplements, are actually working? I hope that some of you are checking your health numbers. Now, what I mean by health numbers, because there's a lot you can check, but at a basic level, because of all the stress that we're under, I always recommend that every year, no matter your age, you check cholesterol and blood glucose. You should also check blood pressure if there's hypertension in your family. but glucose and cholesterol. Then, if you're taking any supplements, let's say like me, you might take vitamin D and magnesium, is check that you're actually absorbing them. Because last year, this time, January 2021, I had some seasonal affective disorder. I had some interesting things happen to my health. I had night sweats. I was very anxious. I wasn't sleeping well. I actually thought I'd hit menopause earlier than expected. Turns out my vitamin D levels were subclinically low, so low, even though I was taking vitamin D. So I changed the format and the dosage, and I started absorbing them. So if you are spending money on supplements, spend money on some tests. And these tests now can get delivered to your home almost globally, wherever you are. And you can check on a few things. That means that you can actually personalize what you're doing around your own health. And that's important because we don't just want to be doing things we don't know if they're working, right? So I always recommend to find out as much as you can. You can even check things like genetics and make sure that you're exercising in the right way for your genetics. And we can even pick up lots of things around even mindfulness and your inclinations towards, I understood through my genetic testing why I potentially sleep badly. And it's got to do with the fact that I don't clear dopamine in my brain that well. I've got lots of dopamine. So for me to exercise late at night or to do anything that makes me feel rewarded is not a good thing. Whereas for some other people, doing exercise at the end of the day is okay. It actually helps to relax them. So it's helpful if you can get some personal advice around this. Now, I've done quite a bit of talking. What I'd like to do is, for those of you that are happy to, and if you're able to, we're going to have an opportunity to spend 4 minutes in a breakout room. I don't call them breakout rooms, I actually call them breakthrough rooms, because the wisdom is always, and the breakthroughs in the collective sharing. Like, I know a lot about this topic, but I don't know everything. And I'd love you to have an opportunity to pair and share. If anybody's logged in and you're a group or more than one person together, then feel free not to go into the breakthrough room and take this opportunity to chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to be keeping my eye on the breakthrough room. So if anybody feels, if you're alone, you'll only be alone for a minute, for 30 seconds, and I'll add somebody to the room. And so, for the next 4 minutes, I'd like you to share. You absolutely have to start with celebrating. What are you doing well when you think of your refueling and hydration strategy? So what's going well? Start with the celebration. And then what, based on what I've shared so far, do you feel could be improved? So everybody clear on that? And if for some reason you don't want to go into the room or you're unable to, you can stay here with me. And we will re-engage in 4 minutes. So you should receive an invitation to go into a room. And now, there might be 3 in a room, so be conscious.
Hello. How you doing, Erin?
Sorry, I realised. Oh,
Hello.
hello. Can you hear me? Hi. How are you?
Yes. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. It took me ages to. Oh my god, I signed up as WellBeing. Lol.
I was like, oh, maybe I'm getting a personal session with Celine. A nickname or something. I don't know why it's recording either for this one, but I don't want to stop it just in case.
Oh, right.
Or should I don't know.
No. Okay. Well,
I pause now. Can I come back?
Thank you, Record Fairy. Still waiting for the others to join. They've got about 20 seconds left. I find it always strange when Zoom, that vortex, like pulls you from one time channel to another. It's always better when you choose to come back into the, I do, I like to come back into the main room on my own. But it seems like everyone's having engaging conversations.
Yeah, I think we've got about half the amount of people who joined the actual call. So they're probably having a couple of bits of catch up throughout the day. Very nice.
Yeah, just
Got to be done.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome. Was there any common ground between those of you that shared? Without sharing the person or any personal information, was there a common sense of what you think you can possibly improve? And maybe pop that into the chat. Is it around hydrating, snacking, setting yourself up for success? Because this can potentially be your personal pledge. This is why I thought I would do this exercise about midway through the Wellculator. It's good to take stock of what we're learning. Wonderful, yeah. Mindful eating. Planning to eat with more color. Taking time away from your screens. We're gonna talk about that now even more. Avoiding mindful snacks. Yeah. Not always easy, because when we're stressed, the cortisol also makes us crave certain foods, especially carbohydrates. Right. I thought there was a nice opportunity to feel like we were, standing next to the water cooler together, or making a cup of tea and having a chat with a colleague. Another really important aspect of our well-being is not just getting enough sleep, but being able to strategically rest. So to help our nervous systems move from that sympathetic overdrive more towards parasympathetic. Because we can't all take long weekends or holidays, and weekends are not always enough to help us recuperate from the enormous demands that are placed on us. So we need to be more conscious about how we approach rest, even during the day. Like right now, while I'm presenting to you, every now and again, I've been conscious of how I'm standing, how I'm using my breath to manage my voice, because I've got an inner voice that could easily make me get quite stressed. Whereas if I choose to stay relaxed and grounded, I just feel like I can really optimize my performance, and so can you. So I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to come back to nature, especially the seasons. Now, I find the seasons are a lovely framework to look at your day and where you can find the opportunity for natural rest and recuperation. And we have to become extraordinary and different and boundaried, because we're living in extraordinary and different times. And so maybe you're doing a lot of this right. Maybe you aren't. Let's take a look at what potentially you could do. If we look at the seasons as an analogy for your day, spring is the morning when you wake up. Spring ends the moment you let the outside world in a way that you can't really control. So you look at your phone, you read messages, you get onto your inbox, you start answering emails, you have a work meeting, you look at the news, you put on the television. Anything where potentially you're going to see something, hear something, or be pulled into somebody else's agenda, and that can potentially release cortisol and adrenaline and take you into that sympathetic stress mode. Then autumn, or the fall, is the end of the day where you choose to actively stop summer, stop being a busy bee, so to speak, and start relaxing. Very important. We're going to speak about spring and autumn and the fall as a key here. Then winter is when you're actually in bed, horizontal, wanting to fall asleep. And the way we sleep, the quality of our rest at night, is completely determined by how we start our day. So how do you start your day? How do you start? Because our days have changed, right? It's just so different. We need to be a lot more deliberate around how we manage these pockets of time where we are more calm than others. And the one time of day where your nervous system is probably at its calmest is in the morning as you wake up. However, how many of you are potentially reaching over and engaging with the outside world before you've even checked in with you and asked yourself how you are? And then we start doing as opposed to being. So what I try and do is in the morning, always ask myself, not just what do I need to do today, but how do I want to be while I'm doing all these things? And if you're picking up your phone or getting in front of your computer and screens too quickly, not only is that exhausting and you start draining your nervous system and your energy levels, but potentially you actually disconnect from how you authentically are feeling. So people like Brené Brown, who's an avid researcher and writer and author, speaks about this process as armouring, Like we put on masks and we show up in a certain way because now we have to. We may even get upset or angry because we've seen something upsetting, but we were in a good mood. We were feeling quite convivial before that. Has that ever happened to you? So how long, if you're happy to share in the chat, how long was your spring this morning? So from when you woke up, and maybe you use your phone as an alarm. I sometimes do, especially when I travel, but my phone is on Do Not Disturb for at least an hour after I wake up. I try not have the outside world flood in for an hour. On a really good day, I'll stretch it even longer because once I work, I work. What I do is I'm so passionate about it that it's hard for me to switch off. But what about you? Will you pop that into the chat? How long was your spring this morning? Was it 3 minutes? Was it 30 minutes? Was it 30 seconds? Oh, there we go. We have, 5 minutes as the start, 20 minutes, an hour to an hour and a half. That's what the guideline is. 90 minutes at the start and the end of your day because of the phenomenal stress and pressure that we're under. And for some of you, like Ash sharing, a luxury 30 minutes, and especially if you're a parent and you've got, other lives to worry about, maybe 10 or 20 minutes is all you can do. What I'd like you to think about, you may never have thought about your mornings as spring. And before summer, before the busyness of the harvest and like that harsh, like sunlight that can be hot and fierce and fiery, which is how we are at work, how could you bring in more of this gentleness of spring? Without going into too much detail, I've got a burnout masterclass where I go into more detail around the impact on the brain. The brain is neuroplastic. When we wake up, the brain is in what we call a hypnagogic state. It's when the subconscious and the conscious mind are very open to each other. That's why we remember our dreams for a moment or two until we start engaging with the conscious mind. Then the subconscious just doesn't shut down, but it closes off. When you're waking up in that state, you are probably in what we call alpha brainwave state. And alpha brainwaves are when you do your most creative work, when you problem solve. So I'm sure you've had this, where you've gone for a walk, or you've been doing something a little bit relaxing, maybe taking a shower, maybe cooking, cleaning up, and you've remembered something you forgot to do that was on your to-do list. That's the subconscious mind, your inner wisdom, your intuition coming out. And the morning can be a powerful time to let that linger. So take a deep breath in, because I'd like you to tap and connect with your breath. We started with a breath exercise, and you may not have thought about your breath since then. How are you breathing in this moment? And as you breathe in, could you maybe breathe in a little bit deeper into your belly? So lengthen your inhale, and as you exhale, allow yourself to exhale for a second or two longer. That can help you release some muscle tension. And you don't need to answer this question right now. But when I let myself use my imagination, I think of solutions that I wouldn't have thought of if I stayed in this conscious state. So if anything were possible, if you could have any kind of start to your day, how would you tune into your day? Let me give you an example. I would love to wake up with lots of nature sounds. I, however, live on a very busy road, which around about 6 a.m., even earlier now, with people commuting more and more, I can hear the traffic. So what I've started to do when I wake up is play birdsong. There's so many beautiful online music clips and videos of natural sounds. And I listen to that for the 15 or 20 minutes while I'm getting dressed, which I never would have thought of before if I hadn't said to myself, I'd love to wake up with lots of birdsong. So if anything were possible, how would you tune into your day? And how could you possibly lengthen your spring, even just by 5 minutes, to help your nervous system? Because before you know it, you're going to be in your busy working day. Busy, busy, busy. And as a business, I know how hard you work. And there's this constant demand on our energy, and we're multitasking, and there's back-to-back meetings. And as you start your day, as you start you trigger the stress response, adrenaline and cortisol gets released. Your levels of energy start to drop. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Here are 3 things that I hope all of you are doing. And if you're not, that you pick one of these to do from today, if you're able to. These are quick wins to help you feel like you have more strategic rest. 20-20-20. What is that? That means every 20 minutes, look 20 feet or meters away, far away from your screen, for 20 seconds. So try that now. Look away from your screen, and if you're working in front of a wall, you might need to look behind you. I've got a window with a lovely view, so I can actually look up. And whenever I look up and I notice the trees, I can notice my body just, okay. That is very good for avoiding eye strain. It's also good to give you perspective, because when we are stressed and when we sit still for long like we do, I mean, my gosh, we've never been this sedentary ever. And now with this hybrid working and this enormous amount of screen time that we're spending, I mean, right now, we don't have eye contact, right? We might think we do, but we don't. We know that if I was looking down at your photo, we wouldn't be making eye contact. I'm doing my best, but I'm staring into a Logitech webcam, little light like this. It's not a human. There's no mirror neurons going on. So right now, my brain and your brain is working so hard to keep connection, because we are wired for connection. But this is not real connection. There's no nonverbal cues, there's no natural movement, there's no relaxing our view. We're just stuck in this little world. So when you look away from it every now and again, when you engage your senses, like you listen for noises outside of your space, or when you stretch or choose to breathe, you actually help release some of that mental tension. And so your brain can work better. So at least 2 or 3 times an hour, look away from your screen. And if you can, definitely have a 1 to 2 minute break between your meetings. I know that that's part of the culture now. That's why this session is 85 minutes and not 90 minutes, because it's impossible to end a meeting on the hour or the half hour and start another one at the same time. But we do that, right? We set and end times at the same meetings at the same time. And in that 1 or 2 minute break, become as embodied as you can. And what I mean by that is ask yourself, how am I feeling? Where can I relax? Like right now. We focused on your breath. For those of you that are already maybe doing breathing techniques and mindfulness, this is an exercise that you may want to add to it. If you're not doing those things, simply tapping into your breath for 1 minute is a great place to start, because it brings an awareness to your body. So become aware of your breath. Maybe also aware of any muscular tension, and let yourself, or give yourself permission to relax. Like right now, can you let your shoulders drop a little bit more towards the ground, whether you're standing or seated? Can you maybe let your tongue drop to the bottom of your mouth? I carry a lot of tension in my jaw. I constantly relax my jaw. And since doing that, I don't get headaches and migraines anymore, because I'm not clenching or grinding my teeth. These little moments of mindfulness and these breaks that we take are really helpful in helping us stay productive. And like I mentioned, taking a 20-minute break in the middle of an 8-hour or 12-hour day is not a lot to ask for. And when you're taking the break, is to really stop. Try not to then jump onto Instagram or Facebook or still answer emails. Spend a few moments connecting with yourself and giving yourself a bit of that rejuvenation and recharge. Because nowadays we are not working from home, we are working with home. And some of us might even be feeling like we're living at work as opposed to, working at home. And so that means that we need to be very clear on our boundaries and have clear starts and ends. Otherwise, everything just blurs, right? Because we no longer have these demarcated rituals like we used to, unless you are commuting often. Because when you leave the office, you're saying goodbye to colleagues, closing your laptop potentially, getting into a different state of mind. And those are powerful signs to your nervous system to relax. But now we don't have that. Some of us are working from the dining room table that we're going to eat dinner at straight after working, or we just leave the laptop open and we keep working. It's psychologically taxing. Some of us might actually be in a bedroom, or we're just walking down a corridor. It takes 1 minute to commute. So we don't have time to change our state. So we need rituals to demarcate these times. Even something as simple as wiping down the table can become a powerful sign of clearing your one part of your day and entering another. Maybe changing your clothing. I've got a client that goes and she sits in her car for 10 minutes at the end of her day, as if that was her commute, so that when she walks back through the front door, she feels different. We need to find individual ways. And this is not easy. If this was easy, we would all be doing this. Creating boundaries means saying yes. It also means saying no. And I specifically chose a map of France because, as you'll know, champagne can only be called champagne, really, if it's using or made from grapes in the Champagne region. And so there's a clear boundary around that. Otherwise, it won't be. It'll be a crémant, or it might be a cava or something else. What are your boundaries that you have to make sure that you are effervescent and sparkling in the way that you want to be? So, for instance, what word would you use, and perhaps pop this into the chat, to describe how the gentleman on the left is feeling? What word would you use to describe how he is feeling? I would say very tired. Oh yeah, exhausted. Exactly. Burnt out, overwhelmed, fed up, despairing. Yeah, over it. And there always will be work to do, right? You may connect with him, so you'll know there's always unread emails, proposals, research, things that you can do. It takes courage to say, I'm going to stop, or I've done enough, and to transition, to leave, to step out the office. Metaphorically, that could be your bedroom, your living room, to enter another time of day. What word would you use to describe how the person on the right is looking or seeming? What word would you use? Fresh. Yeah. Alive. Okay. Yeah, so how do you transition? What is your autumn like? How do you let yourself know that you've done enough? Because by the end of the day, you're going to be tired. Your heart is going to be tired. And there's this beautiful expression: take your tired heart and turn it into art. Now, what I mean by that is, well, I don't mean that we should all become Picasso. What I do mean is that we need to think of ways to become more creative and expressive and move our bodies and get out of our heads, because the whole day we're sitting with a lot of energy moving upwards into our brains, into our minds, and we're focused behind screens and doing a lot of cognitive tasks. The end of the day can be a really good time to move your body, to go for a walk, to maybe have a conversation with a loved one, to try different art forms. I've been doing doodling and these coloring in type books, adult books, where you've got the drawing and you can just go into flow and stop thinking, and you just need some creative, some colorful pencils. It could just be listening to a piece of music. I've started creating a playlist for different times of the day. So energy to lift me, energy to soothe me, and music can be a powerful motivator for that. It can be gardening, it can be cooking, it can be learning something new. It doesn't have to take lots of time. It can be a commitment to 5 or 10 minutes. Even just sitting still at your desk as you write a list of what you've done and what you'll come to tomorrow. That can be a ritual. The challenge, though, is to disconnect, to put down our devices, and to give ourselves an opportunity to tune out of our day. So once again, bring your awareness back to your breath. How are you breathing? And allow your imagination, because by simply asking this question, your subconscious is thinking about it now. And you might think of solutions, or quite serendipitously, somebody tomorrow will send you a link to, this funky video about this new creative art project that they're trying. And you'll be like, I hadn't thought about that. So if anything were possible, how would you tune out of your day? How would you tune out of your day? And when we do this, when we're more conscious of how we rest and approach our mornings, our days, our afternoons that become our evenings, instead of maybe just spending hours binge watching Netflix or getting back in front of our screens, to actually being able to connect with others meaningfully and with ourselves, and have a sense of the fourth dimension of well-being, meaning, contribution, significance, that comes from when we include creativity into our lives. One of my esteemed speaker colleagues, Esther Perel, speaks about how COVID has taken away a lot of eros energy. And by eros energy, she doesn't mean sexual energy. It's the energy of life, the life force that we have. Spontaneity, serendipity, imagination, playfulness. A lot of that was taken away. It was dangerous to be spontaneous. And now we schedule everything. So where can you potentially at the beginning or at the end of your day bring in more of that eros energy, more opportunities for magic, for serendipity, for conviviality, to help your nervous system so that when you get to bed at night, you can actually sleep restfully for 7 or 9 hours and let your brain waves drop into delta brainwave, which is where you dream, you go through the 90-minute REM cycles, and you wake up, maybe even without an alarm, feeling great. So this is a self-reflection. And if you'd like to share in the chat, I'd be curious to know what your answer would be. Which season, so which time of day do you have a longing for more of? So do you have a longing for more spring? So more rest in your morning, or more rest in your day in summer, or more rest at the end of your day as you wind down? Or do you really feel that you want to improve the actual sleep quality and quantity that you get? That would be winter. Why don't you pop that into the chat? We've got autumn so far. We have winter. Okay. Because I'm conscious I haven't gone into a lot of detail around winter and sleep hygiene, but there's many resources that I can share with you. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll share a thank you note with Phoebe and Ash, who can share with everybody that was here or make it available. And you can always reach out to me. Okay, so there's quite a variety. Why I'm asking you to reflect on this is because you can't do everything. You can't affect all 4 seasons at one go. You'll only last a week if you're lucky. So pick one time a day, and that's when your personal pledge is going to be planted. And then you're going to give it attention, right? Because a plant only grows when it has some water and sunlight and some care and love. Okay. Some more consistency with spring. Consistency trumps intensity. Rather do something small every day. So even just 1 mindful minute a day, rather than only meditating once a week. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for the shares. Because what we've discussed now is we've gone through not just sleep, but how do you actually become more mindful through your day? So through winter, summer, and autumn, not just the season of winter and sleeping, how do you tap into more presence and awareness, smell the roses, so to speak. And on that note, another exercise, if you're interested in bringing this into your toolkit, it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise. Anybody heard about that? It's where you use your senses to become present of the moment that you're in. So let's do the first one. I'd like you to look around the environment that you're in and notice 5 things. However, the 5 things you notice must make you feel joy, must make you feel good, or make you want to smile. So look around you. Like if I'm honest, if I look at my laptop, it doesn't give me joy because it's all about work. But when I look at this elephant that I got from Kiko, my 6-year-old neighbor, sorry, he's 7 now, this makes me joyful. And you can't see, but I've got some things on my wall here that are meaningful for me. I've got a flying elephant hanging at my window because whenever it reminds me to look up because it moves a bit with the wind in the room or the air. So look around you, and if you are in the environment that you normally spend 1/3 of your life or longer, and you do not have at least 5 things that make you joyful, please promise me that you're going to bring in things to make you joyful. These are visual cues that can be very powerful for us. And it's individual, right, about what makes you joyful. It can be a postcard, an image, a picture. If you've got a goal for your well-being for the week or for the month, could you bring in something? I've got a friend who recently, she bought a beautiful crystal jar and glass to help make hydrating easier and more joyful. It was quite an investment in her hydration strategy, but it's working because she's drinking more water than ever. So these visual cues around us are important and they can help us. By the way, the rest of this exercise, the 4-3-2-1, is where you feel 4 things around you. You then hear for 3 different things besides just my voice. You take 2 deep breaths, and then you think about whether you need to hydrate or if there's a taste in your mouth. The most important one I wanted to focus on today was the first one. What are you seeing in your environment, especially if you're spending a lot of time in that space? And if you're interested in this concept of joy and how it works in the workplace and our well-being, and if you haven't already seen this TED Talk, it's excellent. Ingrid Fettel-Lead has done research on where joy is and why it's good for us, and it's everywhere in nature if we know how to look for it. And she coined the term joy spotting. hashtag joy spotting. My 2 recent LinkedIn articles and blogs are more about this topic. I've also got a celebration and joy chart that you're welcome to download, which has 100, it's got 100 squares, and then you can write in or tick one thing or more each day that you're grateful for, celebrating or joyful about. And I found that one of the coolest things that I did last year, so I'm going to do it again. I plan to do it 3 times this year because 300 blocks is basically a whole year. And I choose conviviality and joy because there's going to be many moments where I'm not going to be convivial, but the times I can be, I'm going to do my best. So we're coming towards the end of the Wellculator. Number 8 and number 9 are about movement. So number 8 is, do you activate and move your body while you're working? So right now, we've been sitting still for about an hour if you haven't gotten up and stretched. I can't see everybody on your camera. If you want to, and if you're able to stand, I think I did see somebody in their car, so you may not be able to do this, but stand up, maybe do a 360-degree turn one way, 360 the other way. Try and yawn, try and bring on a yawn and just stretch a bit. And after just 10 or 15 seconds of movement, when you come back to the computer, you'll be amazed at, wow, I was carrying so much tension there, or I feel more energized. Like motion shifts our emotion. We sit still for too long and it perpetuates that stress response. And then, of course, we need physical exercise to help produce natural antidepressants and endorphins and feel-good chemicals. When you go outdoors and you breathe in fresh air and you're in nature, you're getting all these good signs and soothing things that happen to your nervous system, and you potentially get fitter. So not always easy. We need to be creative. The one thing I realized in lockdown was how creative I needed to be with exercise and how easy it is to go from my office straight to the sofa and justify that I'm exhausted. But often we think we're physically tired, but we're actually emotionally and mentally tired. And exercise, even just 10 minutes of exercise that you enjoy, like put on a piece of music or choose 3 songs so you know it's going to be 10 minutes and jive in your kitchen. Or find somebody online that you can follow that's really funky, that actually makes yoga fun. And try new forms of moving your body. Your body will tell you what it loves and wants and craves. And the last point on the Wellculator, which we have covered, is about knowing your own response to stress and having techniques to help you manage stress in the moment. So not taking a vacation or a long weekend. Yes, that's helpful, but what are you going to do this afternoon or tomorrow when you're feeling tense and stressed and Teams isn't working, or you double booked for a meeting, or you've got huge deadlines, or your Wi-Fi doesn't work that well? And we need to be able to look out for long-term signs of stress. This photograph is from Cape Town in South Africa. The end of 2019, I was there and I took the photo because it really showed the roses at the end of each row of vines. And I know that in some of the champagne vineyards that I've been to, especially the organic biodynamic wine farms, that they use roses as well. So you'll know perhaps why the roses are there. I mean, they look amazing, right? But that would be a very expensive exercise just to make it look pretty. They're there because the roses get affected by a certain mildew before the vine does. So they are an alarm system. The vineyard manager will notice the roses are struggling. I need to pay attention, because if I don't, the cost is enormous if the whole crop gets affected, right? So this seems simple, but if this was simple and easy, we wouldn't be seeing the burnout that we are seeing, especially now in this post-pandemic space. So roses are red, violets are blue. Ignore stress and it will get the better of you. And we need to pay attention. What happens to you when you have too much stress, when you start moving into overwhelm? What happens to your body physically? For me, I clench my jaw, I bite my nails. What happens to you emotionally or in your heart? For me, I withdraw. I don't even have time to speak to people or the inclination. I sleep for more than 10 hours a day. Not good. What happens to you mentally or intellectually? Me, I'm exhausted and tired, but my mind is wired. I cannot sleep, and I struggle with my meditation practice. A sense of spirit and meaning, for me, I feel disconnected and I catastrophize. Like everyone I love is going to die. I don't enjoy my work. Those are my alarm bells. There's a few others. To It's important for you to notice them with yourself and to realize that everybody around us is all struggling. We're all deeply affected by this collective trauma that we've been through that continues. It's not like we've had an ending, and the world is different. It really is. Please reach out if you need any help. There's wonderful resources within GTR, within the Pernod Ricard family. We're now friends. And I mean that sincerely, because if you reach out to me and I can't help you, I'll find someone who can. Because we need more people that are not just convivial, but that have the sense of wholeheartedness. Because that can help us to stay relevant, resilient, and not compromise our joy and well-being or health while we're building wealth. So how do we take what we've covered and put this into practice for you? Because I don't know each of you individually. So I need you to think about, what are you going to do? What are you going to do differently based on the investment of your time and energy today? What is one tiny habit? Now, tiny habit is a philosophy coined by Stanford professor B.J. Fogg, who's written a book called Tiny Habits. Another great author is James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. They both have the same recipe because they both study neuroscience and understand behavior science. So a recipe that works is any new behavior needs to be super tiny. Super tiny. An example is not I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water a day, but rather I'm going to have 1 glass of water with my morning coffee. So you make the new behavior very tiny, like I'm going to do 1 mindful minute when I boil the kettle in the morning. Not I'm going to start doing 10 minutes of mindfulness every day. So a new behavior that is super tiny, it's so tiny that if I ask you, what percentage of chance do you think you're actually going to do this habit? So if I say to you your new habits, what's the percentage that you think you're going to get this right? You need to, without hesitation, say 100%. That's when I know you've made a tiny enough habit. You're 100% sure that you're going to switch your phone off 20 minutes before you go to bed and leave it off for 20 minutes after you wake up in the morning. If you're only 95% sure, it's not tiny enough. Then attach it to something that you currently do, that you will do every day. So you know you're going to do this habit. So let's say you want to drink more water and you know that you always drink a morning coffee. What a lovely way to attach it to that. Or maybe if you know you're going to brush your teeth, hopefully you are going to brush your teeth once or twice a day, put a glass in the bathroom and have a glass of water then. Or if you know that you're always going to do something with your kids or you're going to walk the dogs, could you put something where you go fetch the lead that reminds you, okay, I'm going to do a mindful minute. So think of places in your day where you can attach this new behavior. And then when you're drinking the glass of water, or when you're expressing your gratitudes as you're brushing your teeth, or when you've left your phone to charge in the kitchen and not the bedroom, or when you've set your phone on Do Not Disturb, is to feel good. So that's celebrate, is to feel convivial about the task that you've set. This is very important because we know that we change most when we feel good, not bad. So what is it that you are going to commit to doing? We've got one more opportunity to spend time together with colleagues that are here in the room. So we're going to have another 4-minute breakthrough room. Once again, if you're able to go into a room, amazing, because it's so powerful when we can share. Or if you're going to stay here in the main room, you can also speak to me and share your pledges. But we've got, just under 4 minutes to share what is your tiny habit and how are you going to make it obvious and easy to do so that you have 100% chance of putting it into place. Just as a reminder, here's the Wellculator. In fact, before we do the breakout rooms, score yourself on the Wellculator. Give yourself 1 point if you answer yes, and no point if you answer no. So do you have a strategy around the way that you refuel? So 80% of the time, are you eating in a way that helps your energy and your health stay good? Yes or no? If it's yes, 1 point. Do you eat like an artist? So are you having 8 portions, fistfuls of colorful foods, vegetables, salads, and fruits on most days of the week? If it's yes, 1 point. Do you practice mindful eating? So when you eat a meal, especially your midday meal, are you giving yourself 15 or 20 minutes to savor it and disengage from your devices? Do you hydrate? Have you got enough water. We need 1 glass of water for every 10 kilograms that we weigh. Do you know your health numbers? Are you checking things like your cholesterol and your blood glucose and maybe your vitamin D or magnesium or any other vitamins or minerals that you might be taking? Yes or no? Do you feel like you get enough rest and sleep? Are you waking up feeling rested? Do you have some kind of mindfulness practice? That can be a mindful minute. It can be the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. It can be a gratitude practice. Maybe it's a meditation practice. Maybe it's a movement practice like yoga. Or it's just a long walk every day without your devices. Yes or no? Do you activate your body during your work day? So are you getting up and stretching and moving? Are you doing intentional exercise? We should be having half an hour of exercise on most days of the week. And number 10, do you know when your body is responding to long-term stress? And have you got techniques like breathing techniques to help you reduce the impact of that? So with that in mind, yeah, what is your score? In fact, my intuition is saying that we're not going to break out into breakthrough rooms. I think let's keep it collective because there's such a powerful sharing here. Thank you for those of you that are putting in your Wellculator scores. So we've got an 8. We've got a 3. Anybody with a score higher than 8 or lower than 3? And I've had a question while you're putting in your chat about the test that I mentioned. It's quite individual, but maybe I'll pop this into to answer to everybody. If you are interested, you can do some very general testing by with life around cholesterol and glucose. If you're looking at really going in depth into your nutrition, the Metabolomics is the golden standard, but that's a pricey investment. It depends on how you value well-being, I guess. And then in terms of genetic testing, DNA Life are who I would recommend. So that should be enough to get you going, and you can always contact me if you have any questions. Yeah, so the Wellculator scores are across the board, right? Whether your score is an 8 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10, you can always potentially improve. And even if you have a score of 8 out of 10, maybe the sleep and the exercise are where you lost your points, and those are critical. So it's not actually the number, it's more, how can I make consistent, slow improvements on my Wellculator? Because when we start with small things and we repeat them and we feel good while we're doing them, that's when it feels like we start with what's necessary. We start with hydrating. We start with finding out our health numbers. We start with a minute of mindfulness. Then it becomes easier as it becomes embedded, and we create what I call unconscious competence, where you just do these things without much thought. And then before you know it, you're doing the impossible. An example of this for me is 2 years ago, more than 2 years, 2.5 years ago, I really researched how exposure to cold water can be good for your immune system and your body, your metabolism, and also your emotional and mental resilience. So I started doing a cold water immersion. I'm an African girl. I mean, I know my parents are French, but I was brought up in South Africa. I don't like being cold. It was so hard in the beginning, but I started with just 30 seconds and I would jump with joy to celebrate that I had done it, because remember, the celebration is important. When you're bringing in a new habit, you have to feel good. It releases dopamine, by the way, which helps your brain think, I need to do more of that. And over time, I now thoroughly enjoy being in cold water. I sometimes choose, can you believe this, a cold shower. That would have been impossible for me to think about over a warm shower. I have swum in lakes here in the UK, not in the heart of winter, but even when it's really cold. So that's a simple way of how, when you start with something small and you repeat it, and you also know why you're doing it. The why is important. So as we close off, I want to help you stay engaged. And the way to do that is to witness you. So if you are happy to share in the chat, what is your personal pledge? What are you going to commit to starting and doing differently? Because then I can witness you and we can do the check-in. You'll get the notification and the meeting request for that where you can come and let me know how you're going around your Wellculator pledge, and we can celebrate and we can talk about challenges. But for now, I'd like you to think about, what are you going to commit to doing differently as you leave this meeting? Because you might be feeling motivated and inspired right now, but in a week's time, when I'm not around to gently nudge you, how are you going to commit to that? Okay, we have a clear to sleep before midnight. I like that. And to have your lunch away from your laptop. Maybe you can find a buddy to commit to around the lunch. Because we do transform our behaviors more when we are witnessed. Extending your journey to fit in more activity. I really like that. Leave your phone in another room for the first hour of the day and an hour before bed. Maybe even just starting with one of those. Because remember, you want 100% success rate. Eating more rainbow-based foods. Wonderful. And on that note, I can inspire you if I can get into your space, right? So I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to speak to you now. If you want to hear more from me, on my website, you can find the weekly recipe that I do. I also send out what I call a well-being whisper. I started that last week. So I think, Ash, that's the one that you saw. And anybody who wants to reach out to me, please feel free to. And come back and maybe watch this recording, because collectively we can help each other to really stay strong and resilient. Through who knows what more uncertainty we're going to be facing. I hope that you are able to create calm despite the chaos around you. Thank you so much for gifting yourself the time to be here. And I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious about ending on time. I am able to stay if anybody wants to leave a comment or come off mute or wave goodbye. Ash and Phoebe, thank you for your support.
Some of it has gone to.
Thank you. That was
Thank you so
super.
much.
So,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so
time for
much.
reflection.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Great. Great.
Thank you
Bye,
very much.
Anna.
Tracy.
Bye,
It's
Tracy.
helpful.
Thank you
so much. Thank
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It was lovely to see your smile, Tracy, throughout the presentation.
I mean, that was maybe the best well-being session I've ever had so far. So thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. It's touched my heart.
Bye.
Bye. The quotes. Yes, great. I'm glad you did that, Isabel. Right, Lorenzo, Jamina, if you have any questions or comments. Nope, everyone's gone. Just like that.
Thank you so much, Celine. That was honestly, that was incredible. I was writing my notes as well, so I think everyone was.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
just thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.